The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Captive Portal and BYOD Untangle 101 webinar. My name is Steve Young, and I'm from the marketing team here at Untangle. Today, your presentation will be presented by Chad McNaughton, our sales engineer. And I want to remind everyone that this GoToWebinar will be recorded for everyone to follow up on. If you have any questions, please, again, submit those questions in our questions box on GoToWebinar. If you have audio issues, please go ahead and try to use the audio panel to select the audio settings. And we can begin now.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Speaking of housekeeping, stick around, you guys, because we're going to give away a $50 Amazon gift card to somebody who's in the webinar. Steve's going to choose that at random here at the end. So when we wrap up the demo and all that stuff, Steve's going to pick one of you at random, and we'll get your email address and shoot you a gift card code. So BYOD has become a pretty hot topic nationwide, worldwide right now. We're pretty open to allowing people to bring their devices. To me, that takes a lot of assumptions. So the BYOD security market is actually expected to reach around $69 billion here in the next 3 or 4 years. And half of the global workforce is going to be mobile based on these numbers by 2020. So as you can see, close to 40% of companies have at least half of their employees using personal devices for work purposes. That's someone bringing their own laptop, their own mobile phone, their own tablet to work for work purposes. So close to 90% of companies are dependent on employee access to mobile business apps. So you're granting them access to these sensitive apps, sensitive information on their own personal devices. These are the assumptions I talk about. What kind of protection do they have on those devices? They're on your network, so maybe you need to protect them. You can see that the little bar graph over on the right, mobile data is mission critical. The devices are important now. You can see that this is becoming a very, very I guess crucial aspect, especially in small businesses where they don't always have all that money to just provide mobile devices to folks who are out in the field. So some of the challenges obviously with BYOD, as I just said, company data is accessible on your mobile device. That increases attack vectors. I don't know if you have security on your phone, etc. A lack of visibility for these devices that connect to your network is a really, really big issue. Who's doing what on what device? Limited security options on personally owned devices, like I mentioned, both hardware and apps. iOS and Android both have had issues lately here with call them rogue developers in their app stores. And mobile threats are always increasing. All small businesses, I feel like, should feel like targets anymore. If you have a public IP, you're basically a target for something now. Mobile devices are just, like it says, it's another option for them to get into your network. And so something needs to be in front of those devices, right? So about 3/4 of IT leaders report data breaches due to mobile device insecurities. 33% of those increased mobile malware infections in 2018 alone. So you can see, it's here. So malware on mobile devices is not going anywhere. As you can see, it's increased, 30-40% close. I don't feel like I can trust you on your mobile device, so I want something like Untangle in front of it when you connect to my network. You can see here, security and employee privacy are the biggest inhibitors to BYOD adoption. Obviously, it's hard to tell me you need to completely do something on this device when I own it. So BYOD is an interesting animal. It's a bit of a gray area. Untangle can do a lot to help with it because we can just basically step in front of all these devices and kind of help an admin sleep a little better at night. So that's a good time to introduce Untangle, right? So this is our comprehensive network security solution designed for small, medium-sized businesses and government agencies. It's quick and easy to deploy and manage, and this is going to protect your business and your business's reputation. By design, it's a low-cost subscription-based software solution for government budgets. We build this for small to medium businesses. You can save costs by leveraging your existing hardware or choosing a turnkey appliance from Untangle. That gives you, a hardware warranty. It comes pre-installed. That also gives you a pretty easy plug-and-play setup. If you're, replacing another device, or if you don't have anything on your network and you buy an Untangle device, it comes pre-installed. You basically just drop it, behind your modem router, and then let traffic pass and you start setting up basically your filtering and your rules. We do offer multiple channels of support, some proactive actionable alerts, both on the box and in the cloud, and then notifications and historical reports up to a year. Untangle can keep up to a year of data with the appropriate sized storage space. We do offer advanced remote support from our team here in Colorado as well, and then seamless transparency with updates on the back end. Lots of vendors update different times a day here, our services. So basically, we're going to help you protect, control, monitor your business critical network, and then now also mobile devices that are connecting to that network. And this is, like I said, a very big trend and kind of the way everything's going currently, especially in small businesses. So we'll talk about a couple of Untangle's products here real quick. The NG Firewall is our basic software platform. So this is how we can deploy our network-based security and policy applications. So if you're downloading Untangle, you get our software platform. You get the full suite for 14 days, and then it reverts to just the free platform. So our apps work very interestingly because they're coded to inspect traffic simultaneously. So it's called, we call it virtual pipelining rather than proxy chaining. We'll talk about that more later. But the analogy I use is Untangle's apps create a dog pile on a packet of information rather than pushing that packet through a long assembly line. So that's kind of what virtual pipelining feels like. So reports, obviously I'd mentioned we do up to a year of information, so the reporting is very robust. You do get live custom reports that let you drill down on really any aspect of network traffic that we're seeing, and then provide compliance audits, great recourse if something happens on the internet and you need to see who looked something up, etc. On the Untangle, you'll see our apps broken down into basically 6 categories. You can see here we have apps that protect you, filters traffic, help with performance, connectivity, basic management, and then a couple of add-ons. The add-ons you see there are great for like managed services provider. You know, you can have a branded Untangle box through Branding Manager. You remove our logo, throw your logo on there. Obviously, we do a lot of things. This is all included in our complete package. So everything from layer 7 and layer 3 firewall up to content filtering at the URL level, HTTPS decryption, and for this actual webinar, most importantly, mobile application control, which we see under Filtavir called application control. So basically what you're seeing right here is the Untangle NGFW complete package. The add-ons there, live support, that is included in the Untangle complete package. So support's not something extra that you pay for when you get our complete software suite. So supporting BYOD and open Wi-Fi is obviously becoming very important, and it's somewhat complicated. Our captive portal is a very handy tool to basically present a splash page to folks where they agree to your terms, log in if they need to, and then they proceed through the applications that you push them through. So we can block internet access for users until they accept your usage policy. This is a basic splash page like you're all used to seeing when you jump on public Wi-Fi somewhere. You can enable payments for Wi-Fi hotspot access if you're like a coffee shop, a cafe, a little hotel wanting to give increased bandwidth to a certain rooms, for pay. The captive portal page can also be customized. If you want to code a custom page, you can upload that zip file. Captive portal can actually handle some pretty advanced code. I've seen pages with Python, PHP. You can also authenticate using our captive portal. So if you require it, if your clients require it, you can set up the captive portal to authenticate users with Radius, Active Directory, OAuth, Facebook, Microsoft, or Google. So OAuth is a big umbrella, the OAuth token for authentication. So if the scenario I use that in is above a coffee shop or a cafe, you could have people log in with their Google email or their Facebook. So that enables things like social marketing, and then also just still better visibility, because that's one of the things we've talked about. BYOD is tough when people just show up with their own devices. The best you might see is a host name. If they haven't set a custom host name on that device, you may just see, iPad. Ideally, you'll see Jason's iPad, but how many Jasons are currently in your cafe? So authentication is always great. It always gives you better reporting and sometimes better recourse when you need to go back into reporting for compliance or audits, because you're able to report all their activities. The way we do that with the captive portal, you can see there on my screen, the very bottom option is track logins using MAC address. If I make you authenticate, I'm tying your username, IP, all that stuff to the MAC address of the device you're on. We can also allow cookie-based authentication there, and I'll show you this a little closer here in my demo server. But having someone authenticate and tracking their login with their MAC address is a really, really handy tool, because there's really no way around that. You know, I've got your username and your MAC address. Officially, I know who you are. If you're brand new to Untangle, I'll let you know real quick, there's a lot of ways to deploy this thing. We can almost find a way to get onto any network I've found. So whether you're buying an appliance from us, or building your own, sourcing one from the closet, or going virtual, or running this in the cloud, the software is all the same. There are some routing options that change, obviously, when we're in bridge mode rather than router mode, whether we're hosted in the cloud or on-premise in a piece of hardware. But this is, even with a piece of hardware, it's a hybrid cloud product. So we manage this through the cloud with Command Center, but the on-premise gateway is still powered by Cloud Intelligence with our Scout IQ aggregation engine, and then also Command Center. I mentioned virtual pipelining. I basically like talking about it. Proxy chaining is not efficient. You know, like I said, it's a big, long assembly line. And so we actually like the dog pile method. That's how I describe it to folks. So our traffic is inspected by all apps simultaneously. So in the dog pile analogy, if a packet of information comes through Untangle, let's think of that packet of information as the ball in a rugby match. All of our apps pile on, they do their thing. Then you see one app grab that packet and run with it. So if nothing has to be done, if no action's taken, that's a very fast thing. Obviously, all our apps inspect simultaneously, re-encrypt it if we have to, push it right back out. Even doing that, we still have a lighter hardware footprint than a lot of other competitors in this industry, because we run on smaller, cheaper hardware, whether it's yours or ours, and we can use lower specs in a virtual environment. Untangle runs Linux Debian as the OS, and because of things like virtual pipelining and running Debian, we just run faster and smoother with smaller resources. I mentioned we do also offer those public cloud deployments. So Amazon Web Services and Micro Azure also offer bring your own license or pay as you go models. So if you have any questions about a public cloud deployment, something like that, you know, feel free to email us. This webinar is not diving into that. Obviously, we're talking Captive Portal, BYOD, but all of this can be hosted in the cloud, virtually, our hardware or your hardware. So we have a lot of options. I briefly mentioned Scout IQ. Scout IQ is the Untangle hosted cloud-based threat intelligence platform. So this is aggregating anonymous telemetry data from across all the Untangle deployments worldwide. This is a very, very important thing when we talk about malware and ransomware, and that is a very important thing to talk about with mobile devices. Once again, I do not trust your mobile device to have antivirus, etc. So I need as many, you know, tips of the spear as I can in front of you on my Untangle. Scout IQ is one of those. So this is identifying threats seen in the wild when an Untangle box sees a piece of malware, for example, that's coming from a new distribution point. That's telemetry data that we upload and analyze, and then basically update all the other Untangles. So you're all sharing information about zero-day telemetry data with malware signatures. And this is included in our virus blocker at no additional cost. That's a very interesting thing that we do. I don't feel like people think of antivirus when they think Untangle a whole lot still, and I want them to. We run Bitdefender for antivirus, and we run Scout IQ on top of that. And that's a very interesting solution at your gateway. So I want everyone to have antivirus on their smartphones because it's 2019, and you should. Personally, I have 4 on mine, but Scout IQ is going to do a lot for you too in the cloud, just keeping your box updated with everyone behind it. So we've chatted about Command Center a little bit. This is our cloud-based centralized management for NG Firewall. This is included with our NG Complete package at no additional cost. So this lets you easily manage multi-site deployments without getting any additional hardware. So you can get alerting, you can see threat histories, audit logs across your entire fleet of Untangles. Command Center is a single pane that shows you aggregated information on a dashboard. If you want to, you can always, you know, sign into untangle.com. If you create an account on untangle.com, you are now in Command Center. You may not have any devices in there, but that's how we do account creation now. It is Command Center. So it's not a separate product you have to purchase or anything like that. This is where your account lives as well. And that's why it's so handy to be able to manage licensing and software updates and backups in there as well. We don't push you out to a separate service, you know, like the slide says, you don't need a separate device anymore for centralized management. One of the coolest things Command Center lets you do is clone, edit, and push policies across your fleet of Untangle devices. If I, for example, have 50 clients who are all in my Command Center, if I want to, I can say box 1 has the configuration I love. Boxes 8, 9, 10, and 11 need that configuration too. From Command Center, I can do that. We enable zero-touch provisioning here as well. So we're trying to reduce your management overhead and cost. I don't want you to have to drive 45 miles to change someone's web filter policy when you could do it through the cloud on your tablet from your sofa. So that's what Command Center kind of is. This is included, as I said, with NG Firewall Complete. If you have any questions about that, obviously you can create your account, but we also have a lot of documentation, webinars, and things like that as well. So I mentioned buying a device from Untangle. You can do that here with a few different options. Obviously, the X series on the left is kind of our smaller, small office, home office type device. I personally use the U50XW at home, and it rocks. These are really cool little boxes. All these come with Untangle pre-installed. If you need it, we also offer professional services for setting it up, installation and configuration services, that kind of stuff when you actually purchase the box. Our support team here in Colorado can configure it for you before we even mail the device out. As you can see, we go up to a fairly large campus-sized device, you know, 3,000 devices, concurrent, something like that we say. These are all running the same OS. You know, you can look on our site and see what the specs are. Maybe you're using your own hardware for 100 devices. You could get on the Untangle website and look at our U150 and see if you're close to those specs. And if so, you know, you've probably got yourself an Untangle you can use. These are these two here in the middle. These two rack mounts are honestly the workhorses on Untangle. I've never seen another one of those after they left the building. But the little ones on the left side are very popular with small businesses and branch offices and people who work from home. So keep that in mind. You know, our cheapest box here is like $299. We do sell these preloaded with Untangle on the website if you want one. So I'm going to jump out of full screen here, and we're going to go over to my demo server, and we'll play around in Captive Portal here just a bit. So this is demo.untangle.com. Everybody jump on whenever you like, play around, kick the tires. There's nothing you really can't do in here. It doesn't save changes, but all the apps are installed. I do like to mention on our demo server, we show every single app that Untangle makes. This is not necessarily what you'll see when you install the Untangle NGFW Complete package. We have 4 redundant apps installed. And those are Web Monitor, Spam Blocker Lite, Application Control Lite, and Virus Blocker Lite. So normally you won't see those when you have all these full version apps. They'll just be overwritten. Captive Portal, as you can see, lives up here underneath our apps menu rather than our service apps. This is important to remember because Untangle offers bypass rules. Bypass rules are really handy to keep your licensing costs down, but they're also good for isolating traffic and basically say we don't need to see this through these apps here at layer 7. So that takes a host off your license for one. We don't want you to pay to filter voice over IP, you know, a local printer, something like that. What that also means though is if I bypass a device, it likely won't be available for these apps in the Captive Portal. So Captive Portal is interesting because we can throw this on any policy we want here, and that's the gateway that they'll be coming through with those apps. So you can see here we're on my default policy. So if I go down to my student policy, this is actually grayed out because they're using the Captive Portal from default. I don't want to go too deeply into this, but this is kind of just a quick taste of Untangle policy management. This is how granular we can be if necessary, or how broad. If these students here needed a different Captive Portal, I can just come over here and I can just click install, and I'll install that portal for them and change the rules, all that stuff. Maybe they need a different rule set up to actually send them into the portal. There's a lot of different things we can do there through policy management. So keep that in mind. When Untangle is up and running with this complete package, you do have access to creating policies that offer different captive portals for different groups of people, different devices. As you can see, these down here are not grayed out. These are our service apps. So all those bypass devices will likely still be available for these. So they'll all be reported on. They'll be available in policies and in directory connector. And then if we need the VPN options. So let me go back to my default policy here where my portal is set up. So on the demo server here, we have a very basic portal page set up. And that's basically what it looks like by default. Captive Portal is part of our free package. So this is somewhat of a simple application. That's why I said this probably won't be a very, very long webinar, too in-depth. There's really only about 5 or 6 things that you really need to know about Captive Portal in general. When you jump in, you get a little status page. You see sessions, any requests, login failure, successes. If I go over to capture rules, you'll see that this one currently isn't enabled. So we're not actually putting a portal in front of anyone. If I wanted to enable this, you see the condition here is any non-WAN interface. That's who gets the Captive Portal page. So if you're coming in on Wi-Fi, you're going to get the page. There are a lot of ways to do this. I try to make people not get stuck in using a Captive Portal for just Wi-Fi. If you look here, I can really stand this up in front of any kind of traffic I want. If I wanted to, I could say all of the Samsung devices that come in on Wi-Fi have to get the Captive Portal, but they're the only ones. So what I did was change that condition. So now not everybody on Wi-Fi gets it, only if we see that the vendor is Samsung. I could also do that by MAC address. You know, I can do a IP scheme. I can do things like tags, usernames. This is a layer 7 application, so we can see things like usernames. So if we're connected to something like Active Directory, et cetera, it's a weird thing, but it can see those. So tying into that here, I could also say if you're going to this website, I have to present the portal page. So this is a long drawn out way of me saying, please don't think this is limited to just people coming in to your cafe and trying to use your public Wi-Fi. There are a lot of small businesses that don't have something like a domain controller. So this is a really good way for us to provide them authentication. I actually want to back out just a sec because I forgot to go real quick over here. So Untangle can also offer authentication locally. I had this conversation a lot with really small business owners. You maybe don't want to spend the money for G Suite directory even, or you know, Office 365, or God forbid Active Directory. Untangle offers a local directory. If you're, you know, a dentist's office with 5 PCs and 6 employees, it wouldn't make no sense to pay for Active Directory. So you could come in here and create local usernames and passwords. You can even set these to expire if you want to do things like guest passwords for people who are on site for just a few hours a day, etc. And then that can all be leveraged through the portal. Another good example is someone who, in the BYOD environment, someone who brings their Apple device to work if you're running Active Directory. An Apple device can't join a Microsoft domain, so they don't get their Active Directory login. So we would be able to say, you know, vendor is Apple Inc., stand up the portal page. Or we could do that by IP, MAC address, however we want. But that would provide those users a way to authenticate. And they wouldn't have had that previously because they're not actually on that Windows domain. We also have a past hosts tab here. If you do need to get someone or a server, something like that, to just basically get online without seeing the page, just throw in an address here. That's all this is. It's just an IP. And then same thing with the server. It just gives you an option for IP. If you want to log that, you can do that as well. Then the captive page itself is set up to be basically boilerplate. You know, this is a very basic thing. Welcome to the Untangle captive portal, et cetera, et cetera. Click to continue if you need to. A quick peek at this. This is what they would see. So I'm not asking for authentication. I'm not even asking them to check the box to agree to my terms yet. So if I click continue, it's just going to show me login success, and I'm just through. I'll just click it here. I hope that's what it'll do. Yep. So I'm on. So this is where you can come in and customize this stuff. This is also where you could create your own custom page and then upload the zip file. So if you have a file that you've created, you can just throw it on a flash or whatever you remote it into, navigate to that, and upload it here. So you can see here, if we change this to have a checkbox, they would say, clicking here means you agree to the terms above. If you have any questions, contact your administrator. So that's all very easy to edit. This is also where we can do some HTTPS SSL root cert detection. This is a very crucial thing and is also pretty complicated due to some mobile devices and the way they work. When you do BYOD at the office, those people who are bringing their own personal devices, I feel, should have that expectation that this is for work and I'm working. So part of your acceptable usage policy for your organization can say, when you bring your own device onto the network at the office, you will be required to download a root certificate for full deep packet inspection. This is a very common, easy thing to do at your office. You know, this is basically going to show them a little checkbox. They download it, they click it again, and it activates. This can be complicated on certain devices, and there's really only a few of them that don't play nice, and most of those run Android. So it depends on the type of devices that people are bringing to your network. But we can still see everything. We can block, you know, all the pornography, all the social networking, anything we need to do. Sometimes certain devices will have less visibility than others, depending on their OS. We can also just do a quick check here. For basic public Wi-Fi, if you're just offering open Wi-Fi, we usually recommend disabling the certificate detection. But when it's BYOD at work, that changes. So this can come down to a kind of a philosophical thing for your organization. Do you want to fully put a root cert on their device and see everything they're doing? You know, if it's sensitive information at work, I personally would want to do that. Or is it just open Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or at a waiting room, you know, something like that? So we do have some options there. And then you see down here, we also offer a redirect from the captive portal. So if someone doesn't authenticate, we can always block them instead of the redirect. We can also block host name instead of IPs for the redirect. And then we can also always use HTTPS for the capture page redirect. And then the redirect URL is just where you want them to go. So if I owned a little cafe and you jump on my Wi-Fi, the redirect is going to be, you know, chadscafe.com. I made that up, obviously, but that's where I would want you to go immediately after authenticating or passing through my portal, because I'm offering Wi-Fi on my network. So guess what? I get to advertise my business for you. So once you're through, I have your IP. If you're authenticating, you've got your MAC address. Then over on the authentication tab, this is our demo server. We have this set to none by default. We don't authenticate here on the demo. But this is the local directory option I just showed you. If you don't have it configured, it was config local directory. It'll take you to it right here if you want to, though. And then also we offer Radius. Radius will ask for authentication and accounting ports, but we actually don't see information. We don't see packets on the accounting port, only authentication. Active Directory is something we're probably all used to. We've all been, you know, enjoying and or suffering through Active Directory here for 20 years. Active Directory makes Untangle better. If you have Active Directory, our Directory Connector app will leverage that. And then we're able to see those usernames and groups. That gives us the ability to create a policy based on a username or a group, or rule based on a username or group. So I could say group is students. They all come through this policy where there's a different captive portal. And then I could set up a policy that says group is teachers. Their captive portal is different. So depending on how we need to set this up, obviously there's the little any directory connector one. If you have directory connector running, this is just going to grab whatever it leverages. Down here, though, I wanted to talk about OAuth. So we're currently using the OAuth 2 token. If you just set this to any OAuth provider, they should be able to just sign in with Microsoft, Facebook, or Google account. This is really good for, like I keep saying, a cafe, a coffee shop. When you get things like Facebook or Google information, that allows you to do marketing to those people. You could even, you know, feed that into a database that, you know, basically builds campaigns, you know, and that kind of stuff. So we can see some really cool stuff when we do authentication. The captive portal without authentication is just a hi, how are you? Please don't be mean on the internet. You know, we'll see you later. And then the filtering happens. So authentication is something that I always push for if it's possible, but it's not always possible. So even if it's something social, you know, I think some information is better than none, but we don't have to authenticate by any means. We do offer idle timeouts here. By default, these are set to 0 and 60 here. If you just log into my Wi-Fi, then put your phone down and don't do anything, it'll log you off here in an hour. And allow concurrent logins is always checked by default. It would be crazy for us to not do that by default. That's kind of a troubleshooting step that I've seen sometimes if you're noticing only one person can get on, for example, you know, come check and see if all the boxes are checked for you. The one below that, track logins using MAC address, that was the one I kind of mentioned in the slide deck earlier. That's a really, really crucial thing that the portal does. Specifically for unauthenticated Wi-Fi, I don't like seeing just a MAC address. So when we authenticate, I can tie that authentication to your MAC address. It's just better recourse. It gives you better auditing information. And this is actually required in some organizations for their compliance standards to be met, just having username authentication. The cookie-based authentication here, let me check that, is set by default to, what is that, 24 hours? So if you log in the morning, Captive Portal keeps you logged in until the next morning. Captive Portal also offers a few reports here. Untangle by default is a pretty impressive reporting engine, but Captive Portal, as we talked about a little bit, is a pretty simple application. So you can see, you know, top active users, just a summary, any logout events. With Untangle, when you see pie charts versus line graphs, all that stuff, you'll see the little icon right here, but the dots and dashes are actual session viewers. So you can just jump in and take a quick peek if you want to there. So let's see, I want to take a peek at the questions real quick. Steve, are there any questions out there that we haven't gotten to yet that we can maybe answer real quick? Or?
Sorry about that. Took a little bit to unmute. Yeah,
oh, good.
Let me...
I'm reading them too, so.
No problem. How can we download and test out the NGFW? You can just show that on the website real quick.
Yeah, that's a great one. So let me jump over here to this tab. If we go to untangle.com, which I have bookmarked and everyone else should too, you can just come right here to Get Untangle, which is up there in orange. If you click free download, whoops, I clicked too soon. If you click free download, it'll take you to our download page. So depending on how you want to install Untangle, there's a couple different methods here. If you want to throw it onto a device, you can do the CD or the USB. If you're going to throw it into a virtual environment of some sort, you can do the CD image. If you're doing VMware, you can use the OVA or the ISO. But this is going to download the complete package with everything we offer for 14 days. If you have a virtual machine or a spare computer, that's a great way to try Untangle out. You can just install us in transparent bridge mode behind your router, modem, firewall, and you don't really take down the network. You don't really change anyone's gateways. We're basically transparent. They don't know we're there. So one way or the other, however you want to install it, yeah, you can just download it right here. You get everything for 14 days. That includes support, so you can give us a shout. Sales or support at untangle.com will help you out. And then at the end of that 14 days, you'll have Untangle's free package, or you've licensed Untangle apps and you're up and running and all that. So you actually get 14 days with support to get everything set up and play with all of it, and then kind of make a decision. So you can get it all set up with our help before you ever spend a dime. If you have any questions on that, let us know. Support at untangle.com, pre-sales at untangle.com as well.
Cool. Is there any dashboards available to monitor the BYOD devices that connect?
Sort of. On the Untangle dashboard itself here, you'll always see these basically 5 or 6 default ones at the top. Anything you want, you can change in here through the settings. What I would probably look for would be things like application control session data. Application control is where we see mobile applications. And to me, that's a quick indicator. Hey, mobile device on the network. So you can see the applications by size right here, but we could change that and show, maybe a session viewer with some IP address, host name information. So let me go over here to application control real quick. This is where we see those devices. And if you come over here and look at these reports, you can just see any classified sessions or flagged or blocked. If I go to all sessions, this is my demo server. There's not a lot of mobile traffic other than scripted stuff. Now I can see this mobile device. What you're seeing blank right here is why I love doing authentication. So this is handy. I can see this IP, but that's all I'm seeing right here. So we do have more information we can present. It depends on what all you want to see. There's a ton of stuff available. And then also over here in my collapsed details pane, you see some more stuff. So I can see this person right now is using the Amazon app. So maybe I need to go throttle that on 2.52. You know, I could do that real quick. So this is why authentication is so important, because I don't have a ton of visibility right there. You know, I see that they're using Amazon. I see that it's a mobile app, and I see they've been on for a minute. The other thing I can do is narrow the session viewer down by punching in their IP right here. So you see in real time that just switched. And so, oh, they've been on Amazon for a while. So Steve, is this you? I don't know. So to answer your question, we can probably do up to about 75% of what you want without the authentication. When we authenticate, I mean, I see the guy's username here. You know, I see that it's you know, S Young on 2.52. Then I could message Steve and say, hey man, easy on the Amazon. You know, otherwise you could do, you know, a policy change. You could actually go in and throttle this mobile app if you wanted to. You could block it or tar pit it. That's something to keep in mind. You know, Untangle, as long as we're seeing the mobile app, we don't necessarily have to block the app to make people not want to use it. Mobile devices are very interesting. You know, they communicate a lot of ways. Everything you're seeing right here is technically an application. So you see the heading up there, the proto chain. TCP and SSL, as we all know, are not mobile apps, right? These are internet protocols, but that has a mobile app signature. So when they're coming through application control, you get this kind of information. So that's why when you're doing BYOD, as I mentioned at the top of this, application control is a very, very crucial module to have. So it's part of our complete package, obviously. Once we have that visibility with authentication, I could say, hey, Steve, I see you're on this IP. I've resolved it to this MAC address. That's your iPad. You have to get off Amazon. Or I just go throttle it. You know, I could throttle that down to as low as 0.1%. And then probably Steve would call me and say, what's wrong with the internet? And I would say, nothing, stop shopping. So it kind of depends on the way we're set up. Obviously, authentication is huge, but that's kind of visibility we have. And we can see MAC addresses as well. If I just click on devices up here, I can see MAC addresses. This, however, right here, this devices viewer is not available as a widget. So that was the only kind of limitation I was thinking of, but application control could do most of that.
Cool. And for the audience out here, can you just quickly explain what tar pitting is?
Yeah, I say that a lot without explaining it. That's a bad idea. Let me jump over here and actually show you guys why I would talk about tar pitting. So if you type in any word, it's going to grab a category, a name, or a word from our description here. So you see we know close to 2,000 mobile apps, but when I punch in proxy, it narrows it down to 18 of these. On our rules tab, tar pitting is possible here as a rule. This is not something I am making up. This is how I use application control and tar pitting here at home. I do this box, I check this box. I don't want you to be able to proxy around my Untangle, but I also have all of these tar pitted. So you'll see either or for tar pit right here. My current example that I use the most is UltraSurf. We're all fairly familiar with UltraSurf. If you don't know the kind of backstory of UltraSurf though, it was created by Chinese dissidents to get out from behind the Great Wall of China, the Great Firewall, they call it. So it's a really powerful little system. If you block UltraSurf, you're only going to make it mad. What that does, UltraSurf sends a request, it hits Untangle's gateway, Untangle sees this block, and then we send a request denied response to UltraSurf. And that response is what makes it mad. It says, oh, they're blocking me. Okay, then I'm going to try everything else I know. And that will probably never end until UltraSurf connects. It'll find a port, it'll find an IP, whatever. When we tar pit these apps, we're not blocking its traffic. UltraSurf sends its request to us, and we just don't answer that request. We never send the request deny. Sending that response from Untangle is what resets UltraSurf's connection, and a new session begins. And that's what UltraSurf sees on a technical level. tar pitting doesn't reset their connection. We don't answer them. So instead of blocking them, we basically, turn around and whistle and walk away. We just don't acknowledge their request. So it's a very handy tool. I would also type in, if this is something you're concerned about with BYOD, I would also type in VPN, because look what happens. A lot of these I would call proxies as well. Something like BetterNet, obviously, Turbo VPN. These things are proxies. They VPN around a gateway. So tar pitting is a really, really important thing that you can do for smart applications. But that doesn't mean you can't also do it for Facebook. Facebook mobile apps there's actually about a dozen signatures. And this is a really interesting thing when we talk BYOD and mobile devices. You'll see, if I type in Google, you'll see about 30 different apps. So this that I have highlighted is the actual Facebook application on my phone or tablet. Everything down below that are different components of Facebook. So maybe you leave the Facebook app open so people can get to it, but then we tar pit every aspect of it that people use. So suddenly Facebook just doesn't seem to work. Their bandwidth is fine. They can get to every other site. They just don't think Facebook works. So you can do some, we'll just block Farmville because we don't want them on there. But you can do some really interesting things with application control. So the thing I'd like to remind people of, though, of these 2,000 mobile apps, there are probably only about, or signatures, I'm sorry, there are probably only about 900 apps, I think, because so many of them have multiple signatures. Google is one of the biggest abusers. They have about 32 separate signatures. This is kind of cool, though, because for BYOD, for public Wi-Fi, this means I can go in and actually manipulate certain aspects of Google traffic and apps without just blocking them. So any app you see in application control is available in web filter or bandwidth control. So I could take this out and I could go to web filter and I could say just this one person has access to the Google Earth app. Or I could come over here to bandwidth control and I could say just this Google Earth app gets throttled. Google Earth is cool. Don't get me wrong. It's a very, very neat tool. And you can walk around on Mars now on your tablet. But that's a really, really big consumer of bandwidth, Google Earth. So it's a cool resource. I wouldn't want to block it on my network, but I can't let it take up all my bandwidth because it's going to saturate my Wi-Fi. So I throttle Google Earth here at home. That's a really important aspect of BYOD, is being able to see mobile applications. If you want Untangle for BYOD, obviously I would talk about web filtering and bandwidth control and application control all in the same conversation, because they're kind of all just different tips of the spear for BYOD and mobile devices. That's a long-winded answer, but tar pitting doesn't tell them we're blocking. Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
Steve, I'm sorry. I saw one question I wanted to answer if no one has. Did anyone answer the question about Fish Blocker in Office 365 yet?
I believe John did, but
okay, I'll answer it out loud. Yeah. Someone asked, if we use Office 365 cloud-hosted email, do we need Fish Blocker installed? No, you don't. So Spam Blocker, Fish Blocker, these only work for SMTP port 25 traffic. So if you have Office 365, or if you're like Untangle, we use Gmail, all that stuff's happening in the cloud. What we can do for you with cloud-hosted email is Virus Blocker here, which runs Bitdefender, will scan those HTTP sessions and those file types that get downloaded. So this is a really big thing too, because it's a hard thing to keep people from, downloading an MP3 on their personal device. Untangle, though, can kind of step in between and at least scan it for viruses. If you're allowing people to bring their own devices to work, me personally, I'm going to have my phone plugged in and streaming Spotify all day or iTunes or something. If I decide I want to buy a song, I'm going to download that over the Wi-Fi real quick. It's only 2 megs. I don't care. Hopefully, I'm doing that from a trusted source. If not, Untangle's Virus Blocker can actually step in and scan file types before they're delivered to end users. So we can scan SMTP. Not a lot of small businesses use that anymore, but when we're actually talking about webmail, we can scan attachments and stuff like that too. I just wanted to answer that one since I saw it, Steve. Anything else?
It sounds like we got through a good number of questions. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you, everyone, for submitting those questions. It was very good. Just kind of following up on that, if you have any questions that was not answered during the webinar, and I know there were some questions in here that we told you to go contact support. There are times where the question is kind of maybe specific to your network or your kind of your setup.
Right.
So it's better to talk to someone in our support team who can better give you a customized answer. So if you have any questions, please do follow up with our support team at support@untangle.com.
If you're just checking out Untangle, if you don't actually use Untangle yet, you can also email me and the other sales engineers at presales@untangle.com if you just have a couple of quick questions. We actually work out here in the support office with those guys, so all our support's out here in Colorado. If you're curious, we don't outsource support. We don't do tiered support. They're all right here in Denver, in Mountain Time, kind of between everybody. We have an award-winning support team who I will put up against anyone in this industry. So if you do have questions, please don't be shy about asking. We'll wrap up here with a couple of slides, Steve, and then we'll do our Amazon card. I think I've probably mentioned this in context, but officially, some of our key differentiators, it's just really, really easy to deploy. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to use. I think after, here 4 or 5 years at Untangle here, I think this is by far the easiest next-gen firewall for you to sit down and test drive in the industry. So demo.untangle.com is the way you can do that. Like I said, if you want a full demo, just let us know, sales@untangle.com, presales@untangle.com. But I said it a few times, this is built specifically for small to medium businesses and government deployments. So a little bitty business can have enterprise level security, but with some simplicity built in. I don't know if you caught this, but in the whole demo, we never saw a command line interface. We don't really do that here at Untangle. It's Linux Debian, but it's all graphical UIs. So if you want the command line, the terminal's available, but beware, etc. But that's the thing I try to get across to people who are new to Untangle, coming to us in a research phase. Please don't feel like you need to be a Linux guru to manage this device. You don't. We have a home product even. Mom and dad have Untangle at the house now to filter the kids. So it's the same software, but it's all still really easy to use and really intuitive. The default settings are tuned to real world use cases. When you go through our setup wizard, it will ask you, do you want to do custom applications or recommended applications? I will tell you, unless you have a really specific use case, always do recommended apps. That's our best practices. We think you need these apps and these boxes checked. By default, that blocks things like pornography and malware and phishing. So the policy management is, like I showed you, very customizable. It's a global top-down approach. We don't do like the complex bottom-up rules approach. And we have some of the most comprehensive bandwidth shaping capabilities in a UTM. We can do layer 3 QoS. We can also do bandwidth control at layer 7 and quotas and penalty boxes. I've mentioned this a few times. We do seamless upgrades. It's always up to date if you set it to do automatic upgrades. We don't charge for new software versions, anything like that. And it's still a software-based solution. Untangle's a software company. We do offer some cool appliances, but it's still software. You download the software and you throw it on a box you've got, or you get one of ours. Virtual, physical, whatever works. This is freemium. So like I said, when you download from Untangle, it's that full package for 14 days. But if all you want is the free firewall app with some reports, let it revert after 14 days and you've got our free package. But then you still have cloud-based centralized management. It's limited when you don't have the NG Complete package. Obviously, you can't do app policy pushing and things like that. But Command Center is still there for remote management of a free Untangle if you just need to jump into the box from dinner on your phone or something like that. We are getting some good recognition here lately. Untangle is not new. If you're new to Untangle, this is our 16th year in existence. We're getting good word of mouth now. We're a pretty big international product deployment-wise. Our user base is pretty widespread. You can see here we've won a lot of stuff here in the last couple of years. The one I really talk about the most is on the top right there, where we got Customer Service and Technical Support Gold Stevie Awards again. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of a stickler for support. If I don't get good support, I'm gonna maybe leave a bad comment. That's how it is. We do great support here. Like I said, they have great numbers. It's a real small team. Anyone you call can help you with whatever. I'm also very active on Spiceworks. If you have a question about Untangle and you use the word Untangle on Spiceworks, that'll email me basically, and I'll jump on and we can have a chat. And our user forums are actually really, really robust and active. They're also, the word I like to use is helpful. A lot of user forums that you jump on are intimidating. They make you feel like a noob and make you think your question is dumb. That's not how Untangle user forums are. If you post a forum question, you're most likely to get answered by like the founder of Untangle or our director of QA. So keep that in mind. You're going to get helped. You're not going to get made fun of on the forums. That's not how it works here. When that happens, those people get booted. They get the ban hammer. Just a few quotes. If you go to our website, there's a excuse me, a resources page. You can see customer testimonials, just some quotes from different entities. The city of Montebello, California, runs us now. They love it out there. The dashboard is working for them across a lot of different deployments in their city. We're in a lot of different environments now. We can jump on pretty much any network there is. Steve and I both said this a few times. If you have any questions, if you're interested in it, sales@untangle.com or pre-sales@untangle.com are kind of the initial questions asked emails. You can always give us a shout too. Our San Jose office is always out there, 408-598-4299. And then I think the moment of truth has come. Let's get our Amazon gift card winner, Steve. Who's the big winner?
All right. Well,
drum roll.
And the winner of our $50 Amazon gift card, as presented to us by our randomizer, is Sheldon Bradshaw.
Yay!
Woo!
Sheldon Bradshaw.
So Sheldon will be receiving an email after this webinar with his Amazon gift card and redemption. So look out for that. And thank you everyone for joining us today on this webinar. And we do truly appreciate your time. And thank you, Chad, for a great webinar today.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Check us out on the YouTube later.
Yeah, thank you.